one.
All right, rookies, it's week 18, final week of the season. Before the playoffs hit next week, my free picks went pretty well, 2-0, and I didn't put up any regular picks last week. Jeff, how was your week 17?
Was much better, thankfully. I had a 2-1 free pick and 7-3 overall, so it was a good week.
Yeah, if you would have bet all of our picks, we would have. Well, our free picks were together, so yeah, that'd have been a nice payoff. Hey, look, the league and every fan is focused on Bill's safety and former Pitt standout Damar Hamlin. And after the tragic event on Monday night, prayers for Damar and his family and a complete and full recovery. There's been a lot in the news about it, and there's some implications for the playoffs. We will cover that on a separate video that we're going to do on Saturday. I guess the rules committee is meeting right now. Jeff, what can you tell us? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the surprise for late this afternoon that caught me off guard was that they were actually discussing not only not playing the redoing the game of Cincinnati and Buffalo and going up win percentage, but they also were thinking about maybe just doing an 8-team playoff in each conference, so there would be no buys for the number 1 seed, which would help eliminate any of the negative effects if Kansas City ends up being the number 1 due to the Cincinnati Buffalo game being canceled. So they're debating on that this afternoon and evening, and I was thinking we might hear something before this podcast, but since we haven't, that could certainly change the picture up the top. Number 1 and 2 seeds kind of not meaning as much, but down towards the bottom, when you're talking about your 7, 8, 9, 10 teams in each conference that were thinking they were out or almost mathematically out, they would be right back in it if you're going to add another team in each conference. So it could change some of these teams' ideas about how they're going to Sunday's game.
Yeah, so more to follow on that, rookies. We're gonna have to get back to you at a later video because there's just too much to even think about until they make that decision. But that could have some huge implications. So I think the best thing to do is keep, watch this. We'll provide this analysis of what we think of the games, and then you got to really watch and see if the players are actually going to play, if the coach is actually going to play their star players, because if they don't, then our analysis is kind of out. So my analysis, and I think Jeff, yours is too, based on a suspension of that game, but that there wouldn't be the additional team. So that's kind of where we're at, and we'll go from there. So last week showed the weakness of several teams entering the playoffs. The Dolphins lost to the Pats, setting up a potential meltdown if they lose and the Pats went out. The Bucs get in with the win at home against the Panthers. Hats off to the Panthers team, given what occurred this year and how much they, actually put up a fight despite their record. The Commanders lost at home, and with it, their postseason chances. The Jaguars won on the road, setting up a potential playoff berth with a win over Tennessee this week. While the Chiefs and 49ers won, they didn't look great. Neither did Dallas with their Thursday night win. The Ravens, Eagles, and Vikings lost, while the Chargers, got through, got into the playoffs. And so the question now is the Pack back? Can they get in, or is this Pete Carroll's year? If they win out, they get in. If not, Seattle's in. So of the 14 seeds, only 2 have clinched their particular spot. So that means it's going to be an eventful potential week 18, given the what happened on the Monday night between the Bills and Bengals and how that affects. In the AFC, the Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, Chargers, Ravens are all in, and the outcome of the NSL decision on the Bills-Bengal game will set the seeding. 2 games to be decided in the AFC will be the Jags and Titans for the AFC South, and then for the third wildcard team. 3 teams are still in: Miami, Pats, and the Steelers. Miami's got the inside straight, but they still got to win, and they haven't been winning against good teams. The NFC is no different. The Eagles, 49ers, Vikings, Buccaneers, Cowboys, Giants are all in. Best bet of the season was Giants over 6 wins total. They clearly cleared that a long time ago. So be looking for that next year as a potential bet. Those teams that, kind of got pushed out this year, but, end up, and the expectation is 5 or 6 wins and they end up getting 8. But the third wild card team is up for grabs. If the Pack win against the Lions, they are in. If the Seahawks win and the Packers lose, then they are in. And if both the Packers and the Seahawks lose, the Lions are in. That's with the 7 teams. It could change if there's 8 teams. So we'll have to cover that in our podcast, but wanted to level the bubbles on the importance of Week 18. Jeff, what are your thoughts on Week 18?
Well, certainly some surprise games and decisions, like Wentz coming in to quarterback a possible elimination game for Washington was just a boneheaded move. Couldn't believe that one. Still can't get over some of these top teams like Kansas City and Dallas and Philly struggling so late in the year. So that's definitely causing me to be a little concerned with this week and first week of the playoffs. And then it's just amazing that you could have Rodgers in Green Bay and Brady in Tampa Bay back in the playoffs after how poorly this season started.
Yeah, I think that's the story. That's really the story of the year, Jeff, is those two guys are still in it despite how bad they played. That's a great observation. It shocked me when I saw that the Packers had the inside straight on that 7th seed. And quite frankly, as well as they're playing, I mean, the line's probably 1,500 for them to win the NFC Championship game at this point. I'll look it up, but I may, if I was in Vegas, I may throw $100 on that one. That might not be a bad bet given how the other teams have played of late, especially the Vikings. They didn't look great. 49ers didn't look great. I'm not sure who's coming out of the NFC. The Pack resurgence, they could get there. So to win the NFC Championship game right now, they're at a plus 1,500. And the Super Bowl, they are a plus 3,500. So, it's a fractional bet. I wouldn't put a whole unit on it, but a quarter unit at this point in the season, I'm not sure that's. I wouldn't say that's a bad bet at this point. All right, we start Week 18 with Sunday matchups. First up, we have the Raiders hosting the Chiefs. The Raiders are home dogs at 9.5, and the over/under is 52.5. The Chiefs win this, and either the NFL permanently suspends the Monday night game or the Bills lose. This week, they're the number 1 seed. I expect them to come out swinging. The problem is 9.5 points. They've only covered 9.5 points 3 times since November 6th. That's not really great. And the Raiders have been playing pretty good. They played hard last week. I would lean toward Las Vegas here. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I'm probably going to lean that way, although I'm tempted to stay away from this one altogether. Kansas City hasn't been covering the big spreads of late, and even if they do get up big, they're going to rest their starters if that's the case, because all they have to do is secure the win. So if they're up 3 touchdowns, they'll pull back. If it's a struggle, they'll keep pushing, but it's been a struggle for them recently. So I find it hard to believe they're going to get that perfect sweet spot of 10 to 14 points where they still keep playing hard, and don't pull their the players. So it's kind of tricky to try and take Kansas City on this one.
Yeah, I definitely think this is one that you kind of got to watch. Where folks are thinking, right? As the rest of the season kind of lays itself out with this NFL decisions. We'll talk more about this one coming up. Next up, we have the game of the week. my game of the week, at least, with the Jags hosting the Titans for the AFC South title and a trip to the playoffs as the number 4 seed. The Jags won back on 11 December and are 5-1 since the week 11 bye. They've done it with an exceptional rushing attack and good defense. The Titans are coming in as one of the most banged up teams in the NFL. Joshua Dobbs, I didn't even look him up. I don't know where he's coming from. Looks like he's going to be the starting quarterback, and expect a heavy dosage of Henry despite the O-line injury woes. The Jags are favored by 6.5, and over/under set at 40. With any injuries everywhere on the Titans side, it looks like the Jags should walk away with this one. However, I've said this before. I tend to lean toward good organizations, and I think Tennessee is a great organization. They're one of the best, and I expect them to keep it close. So I would lean toward Tennessee here for this game. Jeff?
Since this is one of the few games where the game matters for both teams, I was able to just go off of my normal analysis. And over the past 6 to 7 weeks, Jacksonville has done substantially better performance against the spread, and their point spread differential has just been a huge difference versus Tennessee. So since they're playing at home, they did just beat Tennessee in Tennessee recently, and my analysis is pointing towards them being the hotter team. I'm going to take Jacksonville minus the 6.5.
Okay, is it a free pick or just a regular pick?
Just a regular.
Okay, well, that's where I think we differ. We'll have to talk about that next week. Well, we'll see who's in the playoffs, because whoever. Well, I guess I could win the bet, and the Jags could still be in the playoffs. Yeah. So we'll see. Hey, next up, the Falcons host the Bucs and are favored by 4. The over/under set at 40.5. The Bucs are in the number 4 seed, and they have, according to at the beginning of the season, the oldest team in the NFL. That may have changed with all their injuries. And given the injuries and their age, I expect them to sit their offensive stars this week. So I'm staying away. Jeff?
Same here. Doesn't mean anything for either of these teams. Maybe a little bit of momentum for Tampa Bay, but rest is certainly a bigger deal for them. So yeah, I don't expect anything big from either of these teams. Not going to watch this game, and I'll stay away from betting it.
Yep, absolutely. We recommend you do that too. These are ones that if you're up 60% on the year, these are the ones that can tank your season.
Yep.
Yeah, toward the end. All right, next up, the Bills host the Pats and are favored by 7.5. That may have moved down to 7. The over/under is 42.5. The Pats need a win to get in. But with the pending NFL decision and what went on last week, I'm staying away from this one as well. I just don't. I don't know what's going on, and because of that, I'm not sure where their heads are. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, normally I would, up until today, I was thinking of betting the game and going New England because they've got to win to get in, and Buffalo's definitely had a traumatic week and probably less focused on preparation. But that today you start seeing the things with play for 3, win for 3 stuff on Buffalo, getting that play for their fallen teammate injured, not obviously gone. So you don't know how, that could certainly be the catalyst for them to just put out a really emotionally charged effort. So it could swing easily. So I think I'm just going to stay away from this one.
Yeah, that emotion is going to be there for the Bills for sure. All right, next up, the Bears host the Vikings. The Vikings could move up to the 2nd seed if the 49ers lose, but look to be the number 3 seed anyway. The Vikings are road favorites by 7.5, and the over/under is 43.5. Not sure what the Vikings have to play for here. They do play early, so it could be that they kind of play hard. But I'll be honest with you, the number 2 seed's going to end up getting the pack. The Vikings get the Giants. I think I'd rather have the Giants in the pack at this point. And so I think it's possible that the Vikings, rest their starters. And even if they don't, the Vikings haven't really been playing all that well. And I can see the Bears covering 7.5 at home, even if the Vikings play all out. So I kind of like the Bears here. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I think the same thing. My analysis would point towards Chicago slightly covering the 7.5, even if they did play with everything on the line like a normal game. And considering that I'm not even sure Minnesota will put everything out there, yeah, I like Chicago in this one plus 7.5.
Yeah, because you got to figure if all the seeds are up for grabs and you really got to fight for your seed, it might be an advantage to not play your starters and take this game and just accept the position that you're in and go in with an extra day's rest because the Giants are, right? That's the other thing that Minnesota's got to think about from a strategy perspective, right? Yeah, they can move up to 2, but do they really think the 49ers are gonna lose? Maybe they will. But the Giants are stuck at 6, and number 3 plays 6. So the Giants are not going to start their starters. So why not sit your starters? Right? I mean, I don't want to make it, I know these are professional athletes and they can do 2 games back to back, but wouldn't you rather have a rested Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson and, TJ Hawkinson and the whole night in your offensive line a little bit? Maybe so. I don't know. Anyway, watch that one, rookies. That's my analysis, but, I may be totally wrong here. Hey, next up, the Bengals host the Ravens are favored by 7 with the over-under at 42.5. Another game impacted by the pending NFL decision. If the game is suspended, according to this, what I was looking at yesterday, the Bengals will win the South unless they go to an 18 team or an 18 team. But if they suspend the game and they don't count it, then percentage wise, even if the Bengals lost, it'd be 688 and the Ravens would be 647 because they wouldn't have played another game. Now, if they knock out a game, well, now we've got a different math problem. So we're gonna have to wait for the NFL's decision. But given the Chargers the likely number 5 seed, this is likely first round wild card matchup. So given that, I'm staying away from this game. I'm not sure why the Bengals would risk starters at this juncture, knowing they have to turn around and play them again the following week. So, Jeff, I don't know. What do you think about this one?
I think we do have to wait to see what the NFL says for sure, because it would certainly change if Cincinnati had something big to play for. But if they don't, then I certainly wouldn't put a whole lot into this game and, at most play your starters in the first half. So if there's nothing to play for, I would probably actually lean towards Baltimore, keeping it close just because they'll both be, without their main stars.
Okay. Yeah, this one's we're just going to have to table for that decision. And the next up, the Colts close out their season hosting the Texans. Are favored by 2.5 with the over-under set at 38. The Colts lost badly last week to the Giants, while the Texans got smacked down by the Jags. Both these teams are we'll be looking at the quarterback position next year for sure. Looks like Ellinger will go for the Colts as Foles is out, and Mills and Driscoll are going with the tandem thing for the Texans. I feel like this one's going to go over 38. This is one of those where I feel like a lot of starters may or may not be in there. And there's going to be a lot of incentive for the other players to, kind of play hard and try to make the team next year. And I think this thing gets over 38, but I don't know who's going to win the game. Jeff?
I am definitely staying away from this one. I don't know if I trust Indy, so I would lean towards Houston in this game, but with nothing to play for and so many changes coming for both organizations in the offseason, I'm just staying away from this one.
Okay. All right, next up, the Dolphins host the Jets and win and are in. The Jets are favored by 1, so essentially a pick 'em game. The over-under is 38.5. The Jets are eliminated, but the Dolphins are in with a win. Dolphins lost a close one last week to the Pats and are really struggling on offense without Tua. The Jets were eliminated last week in their game with Seattle and look to be a spoiler this week and close out the season with a win, as they are 5-0 in their last 5 games. I'm leaning toward the Jets on this one to be spoilers. What do you think, Jeff?
So my analysis is pointing towards Miami, and I assume that, they'll both probably play with as much emphasis as the other, and Miami maybe even a little more with their potential for playoffs, although they won't have Tua. So I'm gonna stick with just my straight analysis on this one, which is gonna give me Miami minus the point. But I'm not super strong in this one. I don't even know what Teddy Bridgewater's status is as QB this week, whether he's gonna be able to play. So you could be looking at a third stringer going against the Jets defense.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I misspoke. I was thinking the Jets at first, but I'm going to go ahead and go with Miami to get it done at home and get it in the playoffs. So I remember I had changed that bet. All right, next up, the Saints host the Panthers, are favored by 3.5. And the over-under is 41.5. Another game I'm staying away from here, Jeff. Do you like the team here?
I think Vegas did an awesome job on this game. I had the point spread at 42. I mean, the over under at 42 and the point spread at 3.5, which is right what Vegas came in with both of those. So I think New Orleans should win the game, but I think it's going to be right at that field goal. So I'm going to stay away from betting it.
All right. Next up, I think we got one we're going to disagree with on. The Steelers host the Browns and have an 18% chance of getting in as a 7th seed with a win and a loss of the Dolphins and the Pats. The Steelers are favored at home by 2.5, and the over-under is 40.5. This is a team I've gone with since their bye and has paid off. They're 6-2 since the bye, and they're on a 3-game streak headed into this game with the Browns. The Browns got the first game back in week 3 and are coming off a nice win against the Commanders, knocking them out of the playoffs. And I'm sure they're looking to do the same thing this week. I expect the Browns to make this a competitive game, but I like Pittsburgh in the over. Jeff?
So I do think Cleveland continues to play hard, and I think they want to continue to see Watson progress with his skill players and just get a little momentum going into the offseason for next year. My analysis itself points to this being a pick'em game. So the fact that Pittsburgh is giving points, I think I'm going to take them for Cleveland. So I'm going to take Cleveland plus the 2.5.
Okay, so that's where we differ. We got 2 games we're different on this week, and we'll kind of talk about it next week. Hey, next up is I think the surprise of it may be the surprise of the year for me. I just don't know where this game is at from Vegas's eyes. The Broncos host the Chargers, and the Broncos are favored by 2.5 with the over-under set at 39 and a hook. I'm not understanding this line at Vegas at all. The Chargers win, and they lock up the 5th seed in a game against either the Jags or the Titans. Both those teams are beatable by the Chargers, although the Chargers did lose to the Jags earlier on, but the Chargers were way beat up when they played them. They lose, and they have the potential to face the Bengals in Cincinnati. It seems like a must-win game for me for the Chargers. So for my first and only free pick with a 3-unit bet, take the Los Angeles Chargers plus 2.5 against the Broncos. Jeff?
Well, I'll see your free picks 1, 2, and 3, and I'll add a free pick because I also think this one's an odd line from Vegas, but I'm only going single unit on this one. So for my first free pick, I am taking the Chargers plus the points.
4 free picks, rookies. Is my first 3-unit bet game of the year. I just don't see how the Chargers don't put everything into this game, because I think a trip to Cincinnati assures them of a one and done in the playoffs. A trip to Jacksonville or Tennessee, I think, assures them a second round, another week in the playoffs to get there. And then who knows, right? So it's survival of the fittest in the playoffs, and you want to be in the best position. And the best position, I think, is going in that number 5 seed in the NFC too with the Cowboys. But that's for for another thought. Speaking of the Cowboys, the Commanders sells the Cowboys and are home dogs by 7.5 with the over-under set at 40 and a hook. The Cowboys win, the 49ers and the Phillies lose, and they move up to the number 1 spot. And all 3 teams are playing at 3 o'clock, so keep that in mind. The Commanders were eliminated from the playoffs last week, and they come in on a 3-game skid and will start Sam Howell, the quarterback out of North Carolina, at quarterback this week. I expect the Cowboys to play the first half as if they're going to get the number 1 seed. And then I expect that they're going to look at the scores of the other games at halftime. The issue is the Giants cannot move up or down and have no incentive to play their starters against the Eagles. And I don't expect them to. Therefore, I would think the Eagles are going to take care of business. If that's the case, why would Dallas risk second half injury to their players? So do the Cowboys win the game? Likely. Do they cover by 7.5? I'm not sure. Maybe they do. Jeff, what do you think? I'm staying away.
That is my most likely scenario as well. I think they will have to stop, and I think they'll have to call off the dogs halfway through. So while I think they would win, and they could cover, certainly if they played full strength the whole game, I think Washington is going to be able to come back in the second half once Dallas calls off the dogs, because Washington will continue to get this young quarterback as much experience as they can. They'll keep pushing. So I actually see Washington covering because of that.
Okay. Another one I'm staying away from. All right, next up, the Eagles host the Giants and are favored by 14 points with the over-under set at 43. I think they've already come out and said the Giants are not going to start any of their starters this week. And I think the Eagles are going to make sure they win to get in. That being said, 14's that's 2 scores. And that's a lot of points. And so, let's say the Giants don't put in their starters. Let's say the Eagles get up 14 points. Are the Eagles going to keep pressing, or are they going to sit some of their guys? And now that we have the potential of an 8 games and no one gets a bye, they're definitely not going to play their starters, right? So I'm staying away from this game as well, Jeff. What are your thoughts?
So I'm actually going second free pick on the first half of this one, going Philadelphia. I do think that could change if the 8th team gets in and there is no bye, because I think then they would just continue to rest Hurts this week, knowing he won't get another break next week. But if they have to play Hurts so that they can secure a first round bye, I think they jump all over New York early, and then they rest their starters in the second half. So I'm going to go free pick Philadelphia -7 or 7.5, depending on which one I've looked at, in the first half.
All right, second free pick for Jeff. Eagles first half. I like it in the first half. I don't like it on the overall. I'm staying away. All right, next up, the 49ers host the Cards and are favored. Another game favored by 14 with the over-under set at 40 and a hook. The Cards are coming in banged up and sitting out many of their stars for 2023. They're just IR list is kind of like, it's a lot of folks on the IR list. That said, this will be J.J. Watt's last game of his career. So I'm not sure what that means. I'm also not sure what the 49ers would do. if they're up 14 points at half and the Eagles are up and and the Vikings, there's no way they're not going to be the number 2 seed. I'm not sure that they're going to play their players in the second half. So I think this thing could oscillate back under 14 and 2 scores. So another difficult number for me to bet, Jeff. And I think Vegas has done this on purpose. And I like what Vegas did. I mean, they're protecting their money for sure. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, on this one, I certainly think that they're trying to scare people away from betting on San Francisco, but it's not going to work for me. I'm going to go ahead and take my third free pick. I'm going to take San Francisco minus the 14 in this one, because even when they are playing their third string quarterback, which they'll have to go to a fourth string in the second half, I still think they just manhandle the offensive and defensive lines and control the game and probably win by 17-21.
All right, you heard it here. Third free pick. Take the 49ers and the 2 scores. Give up the 2 scores. All right, next up, the Seahawks host the Rams and are favored by 6.5. The over-under set at 41.5. The Seahawks need help from the Lions to beat the Packers, and they can sneak in. They won last week, and they're running the ball really efficiently. The Rams lost the Battle of LA and are looking to get out of this season and into the offseason and in their Super Bowl defending status, which has not been a great defense for them. I like the Seahawks in this one, Jeff, and would expect this thing to go under the total. What are your thoughts?
So I was thinking that I would stay away from this game, but that would certainly change if this 8-team playoff thing came into effect, because then Seattle would have a bigger glimmer of hope. They'd have some real motivation, because I'm worried that they may just second half of the game kind of let up if they know that they're out of it. But if they've got a chance to stay in and play this whole game hard against the Rams, I definitely think they cover 6.5. So I'm actually leaning towards just going ahead and picking Seattle minus the points, under the assumption that there'll be enough ambiguity about what's going on that they'll prep and they'll play like they need to win this game.
Yeah, so the Packers and the Lions don't play till Sunday night, so Seattle's not going to know.
Seattle did get screwed. That's right. They won't know.
They're not going to know. So
Seattle.
They're going to have to play this one hard, I think.
Yep.
Now the thing is, the Rams going to try to play spoiler. I don't know.
They've actually been better than I thought with Baker at quarterback.
Go ahead, Jeff.
They've been better than I expected with Baker. He's done well, so I'm not going to totally discount them. But if Seattle, if they know and play the whole game hard, playing at home, I'm taking Seattle in this one.
So the one thing I've noticed about the Rams of late is that their running backs have been running the ball really efficiently. I think the last couple games, their lead back Akers has had over 100 yards rushing and up into the 120s and 130s. So very efficient on the ground game. So that's why I would lean toward the under. 41.5 seems a lot. And you got to keep an eye out for the rainstorms in the northeast as well. See how that rain affected the fields. All right, Monday night, the Packers host the Lions for the last NFC playoff seed. Packers win or they are in due to identical records with Seattle. There's no head-to-head matchup and a one-game slight advantage in NFC matchups. If the Lions win, Seattle must lose for the Lions to get in under the 7-team construct. Both teams are coming into the game with incentive. The Lions won the first matchup, but this game will be played at Lambeau in the 20s with a slight breeze. The Packers are favored by 4.5, and the over-under is 49. The Pack come in on a 4-game streak, putting a beat down on the Vikings last week. Meanwhile, the Lions kept theirs a chance alive with a 41-10 trouncing of the Bears. The Lions are really running the ball efficiently, and they're not asking Goff to win each game that they used to, right? Meanwhile, Rodgers has thrown for, check this out, in the last 4 games from last week back, 159, 238, 229, and 182 in the last 4 games. That's not a lot of passing yards. They're doing it because they're running the ball very efficiently and they're playing great defense. And let me tell you, if the Pack get into the playoffs, that's why I'm saying I would not put it past them to make it to the NFC Championship game. And the fact is, they don't have to play it in Lambeau Field. They get to go on the road and play in warmer climates. And I actually think that works out better for the Packers. I know call me crazy. I don't think that was part of their plan this year, but I would lean toward the Packers here and the under over the Lions. What do you think, Jeff?
So this was kind of like Jacksonville, Tennessee. It's the other one that, since it meant so much for both teams, I was able to just go with my normal analysis. So my analysis in this one was split. I've got the better against the spread percentage going towards Green Bay, and I've got the point differential versus the spread going towards Detroit. The only thing that broke the tie in Green Bay's favor is just watching the way they have played the last few weeks. And I think the run game and Rodgers being very efficient is going to be hard for Detroit's defense to stop. So I'm going to go ahead and go Green Bay, more from a gut than my spreadsheet, but I think Green Bay is going to cover the spread.
Yeah, this is a total gut pick on my part, and I've gotten burned on the Packers all year. But my gut tells me this game gets under the total, even though it should be over. But Lambeau's going to be cold. Packers are running the ball well. The Lions are running the ball well, but no one runs the ball that well in the cold weather. There's going to be a lot of 3rd down and 4s. There's going to be a lot of punts. I think this thing gets under 49, but I think the Packers do pull it out. Well, there we go, rookies. That's week 18, 18 weeks of analysis. It's been a long season. We've learned, Jeff and I have learned a lot. I know I've learned a lot. We got a lot to improve the site. Obviously, I needed to make better picks. Jeff's picks were pretty good this year. But those are my closing shots for this year. Look out for next year. Look out for the playoffs. We'll still be here for the playoffs. But look, next year, we're going to have a lot better products. Jeff, what do you think?
So I think the first part of this year, we did struggle, and I don't want to use it as an excuse, but it was very unique in the way these games played out when you look at historical trends. Towards the end of this year, things have started turning back to historical numbers. We are seeing a little bit of a correction. So we might see that going into the playoffs. That's kind of what I'm going to bank on, is that we're getting a little more normalcy in the season now. But this one was a unique year to start this site off. So that definitely gave me a lot of numbers to go over in the next few months.
Yeah, for sure. I think the one thing I learned is how tough it is to run a website efficiently. I thought it was kind of cake, but it's not. I got to do a lot more homework on that. All right, so we're going to post this one. We'll put up our free picks. You pretty much got our other picks. And then we're going to do a playoff edition this weekend, and we'll post that. And we'll put up our playoff picks, pretty much our kind of our analysis, who we think is going to make, kind of the brackets going all the way. So we'll pick some teams that you can, if you want to go with our picks or Jeff's picks, or go or bet against us. That might have betting against me early on in the season would have made a lot of money.
The new sales strategy there. All right. Well,
yeah, I do a reverse. So we're going to throw those up for the playoffs. But we got the blog up, and the blog makes it a lot easier. It's on that front page. So you get to see the pick. picks a lot easier than kind of burying them in the heading there. So again, we got a lot to work on with the website, but we're getting better and we're having a lot of fun doing this.
Absolutely.
All right. That's all. Good luck this week and keep your head on a swivel for any changes coming up.